Yes.
And then post.
What's that?
And then post.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I've got a bunch of the videos, and I'm going to send them to Eric. He said he can handle that.
Yeah.
And we'll do it through BSAC. I think that would probably be the best. And then also a list of some recommended readings for those who have found some interest in this and would like to pursue it. And there's Kathy. I see she's on.
Good morning.
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 So Maggie Moore is joining us. She actually did the first class, and I asked her if she'd be kind enough to join this class so you could, maybe she could give it her perspective on what the class, how it affected her and how she's dealt with it, and also the practice that she started doing with me. So rather than just listening to me talk, which I know is really super interesting, but
Fascinating.
It is. It's good.
So I'll give it just a minute or two and then get started. This is our last class. I pared it down from the last time I did it was with 5 sessions, and I pared it down to 3 sessions. I'm hoping that that's at least good for a start. I understand there's another meditation class going on at BSAC right now also, one being offered. So if it's a continued effort, that interest, then you can kind of check into that. Okay, 1 more minute and then I'll get started. How do you like my backdrop?
Very good.
I'm at home with my dog, so she may end up barking or something. Okay, here we go. Kathleen Jenkins just checked in. Well, I think we should get started since we don't have, we only have about 45 minutes, and I want to cover quite a bit. I'd like to first do a review, as I try to do with each class, a brief review, and also maybe talk about, well, what is the objective? Where are we going with this practice? And then some very specific things on how, if you would like to develop a consistent practice, some insights that I've gained over 40 years of practice working with many, many students as to what can increase the probability of success for them. And I used Maggie as a guinea pig last time, and so she can attest to whatever benefit and process happened there. Okay, so the perspective on that comes from Buddhism is that fundamentally each of us has within us a potential for being fully awakened, fully enlightened. So we're not starting with an original sin perspective. We fundamentally have everything we need. The problem that we have, there's always a problem. Any story has a problem. There's a protagonist and an antagonist. And it's not really a problem, but we think it's a problem in a fundamental sense, and that's our mind. And we don't even think it's a problem, but when we start to work with it, we run into edges of it being a problem. Like, I can't stop my mind, and I've got emotions and all this stuff that sort of distracts me. But the idea is that if we partition mind into 2 sides, a conceptual mind and an experiential mind, and I think that perspective is not unique, but I think it's helpful to look at how we put our reality together. It's in the process of each of us putting our own personal reality together that little distortions enter and biases and all kinds of things that we don't know. And yet they become part of how we see ourselves and how we see the world. And we know that they're there if we really examine, because we can ask ourselves, what can't we do? And that's a simple question. Well, I can say, well, I don't really like goat milk cheese, which I don't. And that's part of me. And when I eat it, it's like eating something that is not designed for human consumption. Other people love it, but that's who I am. And I mean, this isn't me because I'm pretty good at math, but I've had many students who say, oh, I just can't do math. And however they've lived their life and run into math issues or problems, that becomes a mindset. We have all kinds of different terms for this reality that we put together. I call it conceptual mind because it consists of concepts, of individual parts that fit together. So the idea is that our conceptual reality, we can call it ego. I call it the Matrix because I'm really taken with the movie The Matrix and how the reality that seemingly exists isn't real at all, but everybody's caught up into it. And I think as you practice, you begin to get some sense as you see the misconceptions. The world kind of opens up a little bit more. The other reality that I've talked about or mind is non-conceptual mind or experiential mind. And I introduce those two because it's in working with those two that we begin to peel back and open up and understand and see the limitations of our own conceptual mind, our own conceptual reality. From the Buddhist perspective, the reality that we've created, that conceptual reality, is really, it's made up of very powerful and useful parts. It's just that we've locked them into a particular pattern. And if we can unleash them, the elements of our conceptual reality are actually the source of our liberation. So we don't want to throw our reality out. We just want to clarify it. Okay. So that's the process of meditation from this perspective. Now, there are many different ideas about what meditation is about. You might want to do meditation simply to relax, to sleep better, and that's perfectly great. There's no problem with that whatsoever. The purpose of this class, however, is to really get down to the heart of what's actually happening when you meditate, so that you can say, do I want to pursue an aspect of this path? Would I like to sort of uncover who I really am a little bit more fully? Sort of let a little bit more of that potential be realized. So I want to go into this conceptual reality, review it just a little bit more to look at the elements that we're working with when we do meditation. And the elements are our attraction to things, what we like, the things that we don't like or what we're repulsed by, and the things that we ignore. So that's a continual process of conceptual mind as we've grown up and put our world together. We ignore a lot. We gravitate towards those things we feel we like. We reject or push away the things we don't like. And those become actually weapons that our ego uses to prevent us from meditating. So for example, you think to yourself, well, meditation sounds good, but I just don't feel like doing it today. I've got other things to do, you know? And it's not just meditation, but there's so many things that we'd like to accomplish that we run into our own mind kind of checking and saying, does this fit with the things I want to do right now? And the problem is mind is fickle, you know. We might get enthusiastic about something. Like when I was young, I went into so many things. I made jewelry, I cast gold, I cut stones, I did long distance motorcycling, I dabbled in photography, and I'm sure most of you, if you've had the opportunity to do that, you've done that kind of thing. You just want to explore. What is it you like? What do you find interesting? What is it that pulls out of you aspects of yourself? But mind is fickle. You know, you might be enthusiastic about photography for a while, and then all of a sudden you wake up and say, this is just no longer interesting to me. And so mind changes, and we can't always count on the enthusiasm for carrying through, even with some of the things that we really want to accomplish, because they take a willingness to go through periods where nothing seems to happen and nothing seems to be rewarding. I'm not getting reward from it. And how much of our life, how much of our life is guided by achieving some kind of a reward, some kind of a feel-good situation with what we do. And meditation really works with that aspect of our ego, that clinging or wanting something to happen or being pushing away. Because to get at what we really are, we have to, in a sense, not pay as much attention to our passion and our aggression and our ignorance, and just be willing to be with what's happening, no matter what it is. Let's talk for a moment about some aspects that seem to arise when people really do practice a lot. And it seems like a contrast here, because now I'm saying, okay, these are the rewards, but it's more observations, I guess. When you practice, and not always the case, sometimes you feel more confused, but overall in the long run, there's a greater clarity. You can see things more clearly. You don't get quite as caught up in your own perspective. It's easier to look at the world from other points of view, because you don't have so much vested in holding on to a particular perspective. So there's a clarity and an unbiasedness that develops. There's also an aspect of bravery, and bravery in this particular path has to do with being willing to be with whatever your mind throws at you in the moment and not run away. So whatever emotion comes up, a willingness more and more to just stay with it. There's a really good teacher. I had her at seminary, and some of you may know her name, Pema Chodron. Does people recognize that name? She's been featured she's world famous. She's led seminars with people and talks and written books. But if you want to explore a little bit more about this idea of staying with it, the name is Pema, P-E-M-A, C-H-R-O-D-O-N, Chodron. And I'll put that on my list as well. So the bravery, an aspect of bravery, we think of bravery in one perspective of being able to jump into dangerous situations, but the most brave thing you can do is when a tremendously powerful emotion comes up, to be exactly there, right with it, without trying to distract yourself, whether it's sorrow, whether it's joy, whether it's jealousy, whether it's whatever, just experiencing the experience of that particular frame of mind right then while it's happening. Another quality that seems to manifest is compassion. And in this sense, it's a more open-hearted quality. It's a compassion for both yourself and for others. it's very similar to the compassion that we feel when we see somebody being, you know, like maybe Dragon, seeing that video of George Floyd. I didn't see it, but I heard about it, and that was enough. Having the life pressed out of him by a knee on his neck. It's just so fundamental. But we're more touched by what goes on in the world. The barriers or the fences that we build around our heart tend to soften. And it's okay. It actually is a strength. We think it's a weakness often in our life. We've encountered some difficulties or pains, and so we say, I'm not going to let that happen again. You know, maybe you've had a tremendously open-hearted love affair and it breaks up, and you say, I can't be that. I can't be that involved anymore. So the little bit shuts off. And from this perspective, you actually want to open it up even more, to be even more sensitized, which involves compassion. Wisdom. Wisdom is another quality. Because you're not invested in so much time and effort protecting your worldview, you can actually explore, and the mind just softens, and you can look at things from many, many different perspectives. We do that as we age anyway, because we suddenly realize as we get older that we don't have a handle on a full understanding of how things work. It's just a natural process of aging for some, not all. I mean, I've encountered some older people that are really, really solid in their views, and I've encountered others who, you know, they've softened and they just enjoy people with different perspectives and different experiences. And so that tends to happen with practice as well. And then a term it's close to happiness, but it's not really happiness. There's a quality of joy. And joy relates to appreciation of whatever's happening, a full appreciation of whatever's happening, whether it's painful or not painful. So joy comes with just tasting life, exactly what's happening, unfiltered. That's linked with, there's an emotive quality, and the Buddhists call that joy. Okay, so that's looking at sort of the picture far down the road. That's looking at the fundamental problem that human beings run into, which is their mind. And then today, I really want to focus on the tool that, I want to make sure my recording, I better be, yeah, I am recording. Okay, good. So, I mean, I realize in a certain sense that I'm marketing something, and but what I'm trying to market is something to those that are finding it interesting and feel that it's, excuse me, a second, I gotta take care of a dog. Come on, Dragon. Come on. Dragon.
My dog thinks this is his kind of class.
My house is the drop-off spot for a farm share from Cedarville Farm. So when people come up, because I have a German Shepherd dog, she has to announce they're coming every single time. So anyway, so looking at, sorry about that. So looking at meditation, this is the tool. It's not the only tool, but it's a beginning tool to start working with unfolding the matrix, the cocoon that we've enfolded ourselves in. We have to do it gently because that cocoon itself encompasses many very powerful energies and aspects of ourselves. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Some people try to do that. I just want to stop my mind. There's a lot of, it's like the raw material for a mine that has within it a bunch of gold or silver. You want to mine it carefully so that you can pull out the jewels and the gems. Even things like jealousy, rage, all of those have energies. And if they can be tapped into and turned into allies, there's a book that I reference called Turning the Mind into an Ally. All of those become tools that we can use on our journey. So there's nothing we really want to throw out. We just want to clarify so that it becomes useful to us. Okay. The specific tool is this oscillation between going into non-conceptual mind or experiential mind and then drifting back into our conceptual reality. And when you practice, what you do is you have an object, what we call an object of meditation, which is always an experiential thing. So with one approach, which we use, is just experiencing our breath, just experiencing our breath moment by moment by moment. Similar to that, what is the experience, and you can do this right now, what is my experience of my bottom right this moment sitting on my seat? If you just touch into it, there's a raw experience. Or touching the hands together, there's a moment of just raw experience. So we set up a situation where we're experiencing something that's happening right now, right now, right now. And by laying that as the foundation, then suddenly the mind will take off and go someplace. It will say something like, oh, I don't like this. Or suddenly you're in a different storyline, or you remember, and a memory comes in, a whole range of things. It can be an unemotional memory. It can be a very emotional experience. I've been in retreat situations where I've seen people cry for 2 weeks, or they laugh. It's just very powerful, our mind. But because we alternate, we let it happen, we look at it, at the conceptual mind, but we call it thinking. In other words, we're telling our mind that this is a manifestation of the matrix that we've put together for our whole life. We experience it from that perspective, and then we go back to that raw experience of our breath. Doing that over and over and over again begins to sort of soften and clarify how we've put together this lifelong reality that's Eileen or Kathy or Maggie or Diane or Robin or Sherry or Kevin and Ann or Jane, all those things. So it's similar to, you can watch a movie, and I think I've mentioned this, and get involved in the movie, but if you watch it a second time, you can just be in your seat and experience the movie as just a movie without getting so caught up in it. And that's the idea. So we can look more closely at how we've just put our reality together. Calling it, that's our conceptual mind. We use the label thinking, and then come back to our breath, which means answering the question, what is my experience of my breath right now, and right now, and right now, to the point of almost becoming the breath. So almost substituting an identity which is linked to a breath to an identity that is linked to Robin. Okay. Really simple process, really simple procedure. Really difficult to follow through for most people. Not everyone. I've seen people who will jump in off the street and do a month-long meditation retreat where they're practicing 9 hours a day. But it's rare. For the most part, as I mentioned before, at our Shambhala Center, when every Monday night we would have people come in and get meditation instruction. And 99.9% of them never come back. I never hear from them. And when they start practicing, and I'm sure many of them try it, and they just encounter mind and the power of their ego to tell them that other things are more important to do. So, now, if you do this practice, no matter what, it will work. I can say that. Ego will fight that. All kinds of powers within your own mind will resist that. But I think it's worthwhile having that as a pole start. This process works. It's got about 2,500 years of being tested. And it does work. And to the extent that you're willing to pursue it is the extent to which you can unwind your conceptual reality. Now, that said, my question to myself was, after giving meditation instruction for 35 years, the process I've been using hasn't been working. What is it that people need? What do they need to do for the most part if they really want to develop a practice, or not just meditation, but accomplish something that's really kind of difficult? I remember, I got my PhD, and that was a tremendously painful ordeal. Or people who finally decide they want to go on a weight loss program. Maybe they're obese and want to go on a weight loss program, and how difficult that is. You go through so much. What is it that ups the chance that you can actually follow through on something that takes a tremendous amount of work and change? And I've come up with, and this is where my offering of this class originated, and why I approach it this way. So these are the four elements that I've found. I think the most important thing to start with is not just jumping in and doing meditation practice. I think the most important thing to do is knowledge, building some understanding of what it is you want to accomplish. And I think I mentioned the book Aerobics that changed my life when I was in my 20s and got me onto an exercise program, because I studied the physiology. I knew that I was a couch potato, and I knew that I didn't like the direction I was going. And I just studied about the heart and aerobics, and getting that understanding. And it's not knowledge, isn't just knowledge, but it's contemplating, thinking about what you learn in the context of your own life. So you read, you listen to lectures, and then you actually spend some time contemplating it. If you do that and you connect with something in the knowledge, that leads naturally to gumption or inspiration. I call it fire in the belly. And that inspiration and gumption or fire in the belly, I think, are essential. There has to be a spark that lights inside you that says, I really want to do this. I've read about it. I've studied it. I've contemplated in my own life. I looked at the direction that I was going. I didn't want to go that direction anymore. I want to go this direction. It's an emotive feeling. And for me, and I don't know if it is for everybody, but for those that it is, that's again why I start with presenting the knowledge. But it's the next step is that inspiration. Because you have to have that, you have to have some inspiration to be willing to go through difficult times. Otherwise, once you hit a little barrier, you're stopped. We all know that. A willingness to a little bit of self-sacrifice, to stick with things. Okay, so knowledge leads to inspiration or gumption or fire in the belly. Unfortunately, the forces of our ego, they're really powerful. And what they do is they come back with making the mind fickle. Inspiration is temporary. It doesn't last. You can be super enthusiastic about something one day, 2 months later, meh, I'm not interested. The mind changes, the emotions change. So how to solidify that knowledge and gumption and inspiration into a real path? And I'm not just talking about a meditative path. I'm talking about any path of life that you consciously choose that you'd like to accomplish. Ego loves to hijack inspiration. It's just, we're really, really good at that. So what we need to overcome that hijacking of our own ego is a support system. When I launched into a weight training program back around 2000, first thing I did is I asked a friend of mine, he had a Bowflex machine. And so I would get up 3 days a week and I'd go over to his house in the morning and we'd do Bowflex together. Everybody familiar with what the Bowflex machine is? It's a kind of a weight training machine that uses these spring arms. And working together, it was social. We could talk. He would take a turn on it. I would take a turn on it. And it made it so much easier to do something which alone I didn't quite have enough gumption to do. So having the friend helped carry me through that whole time. So what is the support system? The support system is two things. One is having others that you can practice with, if at all possible. It's difficult right now, but at our Shambhala Center, we do offer virtual practice. There's all kinds of places where you can just sit online and practice with people. But I think more importantly is having a meditation instructor. I think of it as more as a guide, somebody who knows you well enough and knows what you want to accomplish. And they see themselves in a support position for your practice and your path. So the ego, you want to be careful in terms of somebody who wants to become your guru or your, not guru, I don't want to use that term, but more like a cult thing. You've heard of that where, like James Jones, that's really bizarre. But if ego is too much involved in the leader or the person that's your guide, it can really, it's dangerous. So you have to be really conscientious about who you choose if you want to go on some kind of a path. It's a physical trainer. I'm now doing physical therapy, and I have a couple guides there that are really helping me. And then lastly, you need to create a structure. You need to create space in your life. You have to look at your life and say, assuming all the other things happen, you've got the gumption, you fundamentally feel it'd be good for you. You line up a meditation instructor, if you can, maybe a community. And more importantly is creating a mental structure. Say, okay, I can carve out some time in my life. I know my life is busy, but this is important. So you have to look at your life and say, how can I fit this in? And I want to fit this in. And I'm going to commit for at least a certain length of time to fit it in, no matter what. So those are the 4 elements that I've come to the conclusion really enhance the likelihood that you'll actually develop practice so you do it enough that this uncovering process can begin to go deeper and deeper. Now, what does this mean in terms of meditation? What it means is all of this is geared to shifting meditation from the want, don't want frame of mind to what I call a constitutional or habitual frame of mind. And let me explain. I don't know how many of you people floss your teeth every night. I do it. And I've done that for years and years. And at first it was, I got the knowledge, well, why you have to floss? And then I started doing it. And at first my teeth bled and all kinds of stuff. And I thought, that's unpleasant. But I just kept doing it. And then eventually it became so habitual that it doesn't enter the realm of, do I want to floss my teeth or not tonight? In other words, we take it out of that normal thing that we do with many parts of our life where we judge, do I want to do this or don't I want to do it? Do I want to do this? Don't I want to do it? For those of you who floss, think how tedious it would be if every night you had to make a decision based on how you felt, whether you flossed or not. It just doesn't work, does it? Because I'm too tired. I don't want to floss tonight. But if it's habitual, if it's part of your fundamental makeup, then you just do it, right? It shifts into that. So the idea is to turn meditation into a constitutional part of your life. And that's when it can really take off. I want to mention a couple of other things. I want to talk about, and then I'm going to stop talking, open it to questions, and then have Maggie talk a little bit, if she wants to, about her process. You might want to jot down these two terms: hot boredom and cool boredom. Most of us are familiar with the experience of hot boredom. When we get on an airplane and suddenly there's no magazine to read and nobody interesting to talk to, and we're facing a 6-hour flight and there's nothing happening. And the mind goes, how can I make it through? I don't have anything to do. This is just that almost a writhing agony of boredom. With practice, you will actually go through that. But on the other side, and you discover this, is what we call cool boredom. You can actually just be without anything happening, and it's fine. But it requires a willingness to just be with that experience of hot boredom, which is just ego trying to take us away. So that's essentially what I want to cover. So just want to say that I do offer, if people want to do a follow-up, and maybe Maggie can speak more to this in terms of if you want to develop a practice and have somebody to work with you, not just me, but there are other people available. This is just the beginning. It's one or two of you may be interested. If not, that's perfectly fine. You still have the information later on. There might be something you want to explore. It's worthwhile spending a lot of time studying and getting that knowledge part. But I just want you to know that I'm available for that, and that's sort of what I've dedicated the rest of my life to doing, is to supporting other people in their practice. Okay, Maggie, would you like to maybe mention what's been going on? Turn your microphone on. There you go.
Yes, I would, Robin. I would like to tell all of your students today that I took the 5-week course, and I was tempted to try the meditation after that. And Robin said, you need to practice for 3 weeks. It takes 3 weeks or 21 days for a habit to form. And so he suggested that I practice for an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the evening. And I decided that, yes, I would try that. And so for the first 3 weeks, it was interesting. I was excited. I had no problems taking time to meditate. It just came and it just fell into my life, and it was just wonderful. It was after the 3 weeks that I began to get these things popping into my mind and distracting me all the time. It was like, wow, where did this come from? So eventually, Robin put together a list of things called preparation for meditation. And he may have talked about that with you. And I read that every time before I meditate. And it reminds me that this is a slow process. I'm the type of a person who gets on a project and goes, and I want the end goal. So it was difficult for me to say, oh my goodness, this is a slow thing. It takes time. But after, I'd say, another month, I've been practicing now for over 2 months. And I would say that at one point, I began to realize that this has to be a slow process, and I need to practice more concentrating on my breath and distancing myself from those thoughts that are just pounding in my head. And now it's easier just because I've read one of the books that he recommends. I'm spending time now getting more knowledge, and one of them is Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Suzuki. And that has made me understand more of what Robin has been saying. So I'm excited and I'm joyful, and I realize that the reward is just doing it every single day. And I have no problems now taking time to do that. I don't worry so much about the pandemic. I know it's there, but I'm much more calm. I have more energy, and I'm very happy to have been pointed in this direction, and I like this path. And I thank Robin very much for being my support system.
Thanks, Maggie. You can see why I invited her. So any final questions? We've got maybe 7 minutes before it closes. And as I said, I will send a reading list to Eric. I'll have everything come through him. And then the classes that I recorded, I'll make those available as well. So
we can have your contact information when after you send that out to us.
yeah, and my contact information, sure. My email address. And you can write that down now. It's just robinrieck@msn.com. ROBINRIECK@msn.com. So.
Great.
Any other questions, observations, or critiques?
You mentioned an hour in the morning and a half an hour. That's a long time, isn't it? Especially for beginners.
Are you asking me or Maggie?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
When I started, my teacher said to practice an hour a day. I got a sense of Maggie, and I asked her what kind of time she had in her day. And I thought, given the amount of time she had, why not supercharge her practice if it works for her? So I think it's unique to each person. And so that's what I explore, is what would your life allow? If you're a working person, obviously you can't spend an hour and a half a day practicing, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say one thing with Maggie. I told her at the end of the 3 weeks that, I'd like her to join me for our 3-hour meditation on Sunday. And Maggie, do you remember what your response was?
Yes, I said I was terrified of a 3-hour meditation.
And at the end of the 3 weeks, did you do it?
I did it and I did it again. So I've done a couple of those and I'll probably do more. It's not terrifying.
Hmm.
Yeah, again, the idea of being terrified is our own conceptual reality, right? That's something we've got there. It's a belief system we have. What can we handle? What can we do? So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm hearing that. I think that our conceptual reality that is being formed when we are very small and lack experience to interpret what we see around us.
Right.
So, so when when you're talking about becoming aware of your conceptual, the elements of your conceptual reality, at what I'm seeing, and it may not be correct, is that you discover these conceptual realities of who you are and what your limits are very young, and then you, as you get older and you get into meditation to get a more neutral look at your conceptual reality, then perhaps that conceptual reality does not have the hold on you, the limits.
That's the gist of it. Yeah, that's the gist of it.
Okay.
Exactly. That's what we're working with. We buy into the storyline that our mind has created. And this is a sort of softening that total buy-in that we have.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else? We've got about 1.5 minutes before they cut us off, I think.
Well, I want to thank you. That this was very interesting, and I'll be looking into it some more. A little different point of view.
Yeah, good. That's all I can hope for, is just kind of spark an interest in something, and then see if the gumption and the inspiration, or it might lead to something else. Yeah, Kelvin, I mean.
How important is the form of meditation as to whether it be on a walk on a beach, or sitting quietly, or having guided meditations like they have on YouTube?
For this particular path, the sitting meditation is really helpful because you can't, it's easier to have subtle distractions if you're walking. Walking meditation is wonderful and it's part of what we do. But you want to form a basis right where you have to be exactly with what's happening right now. And if you're sitting down with good posture, there's no running away. The mind is so slippery that if you just start with like walking meditation or walking on a beach and all that kind of stuff, ego feeds into that and says, oh, this is wonderful. This is what meditation is all about. And this is all I have to do. And, you know, it's good. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you really want to start that digging process and uncovering process, you have to do it sort of naked, taking off all the clothes of our mind, you know, and just be there. So.
Thank you, Robin, very much for this class.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Whatever path you pursue, good luck on that. And if you ever just want to chat, I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about it. If you have a question 12 years down the road, if I'm still alive, I'll answer it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And thank you, Maggie, for sharing.
Yes.
Thank you, Kathy.
Inspirational.
And thank you, Robin.
More than welcome. I feel so blessed to have discovered this path this lifetime. I cannot express how I'm sure I would have been a rapist and a pillager.
Oh, yes.
Every hour on the cushion is one less rape and pillaging, I figure.
Oh my gosh.
I hope not, but okay. Anything else? We could go until 11 if they don't shut us off, but so if you do have questions.
No, I have longevity class at 11.
Okay.
Yeah, this is our longevity stick coming on next.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll say goodbye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.